Stop driving and start discovering. We just launched the History or Drive app. It turns your phone into a professional tour guide with over 500 historic locations. Want to go where we've gone? Access expert videos and podcasts that sync with your route. With one-click directions, history is just a turn away. Grab our launch pass for just $2.50. That's full access through the end of 2026 for less than a cup of coffee. Visit historyordrive.com today and start your next history road trip. That's historyordrive.com. Imagine walking through the quiet, rolling hills of Arlington National Cemetery. Every white headstone tells a story of service, but today we are stopping at two grave sites that represent the very heart of the American spirit during the darkest days of World War II. One is the resting place of a pioneer, a man who proved that no target was out of reach even when the world felt like it was crumbling. The other is a site that honors the sacrifice of 5 brothers. Welcome to Talk with History. One filmmaker, one historian, leading history-inspired world travels. For the curious, the explorers, and the history lovers out there. I'm your host, Scott, here with my wife and historian, Jenn.
Hello.
Today, we're taking you to the hallowed ground of Arlington to honor some of the most recognizable names from the greatest generation. We're visiting the grave of General James Doolittle, the mastermind behind the daring 1942 raid on Tokyo that lifted a nation's spirits when we needed it most. We'll talk about the legacy of the Sullivan brothers, 5 siblings from Waterloo, Iowa, who insisted on serving together on the USS Juneau. Their background, their bond, and their ultimate sacrifice was so profound that it changed the way our military operates forever. Today, we are paying our respects to the legends of Arlington National Cemetery. All right, Jenn, so yes, you don't recognize me now. Before we get into our main topic here, I do want to get some shout outs because we got some 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast.
Thank you.
So after our last couple calls out, I saw our review jump up. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, keep it up, folks. My goal, I would love to get to 100 reviews by the end of the year. We're in the mid 50s, higher 50s now.
But the History Channel.
We got to catch the History Channel that's got a couple million. So, but we had some 5-star reviews. 2 folks who left us 5-star reviews wrote us a little review. This one is from Sandra D. There's 4 E's in that, if you're listening. So the Sandra D wrote, "History is great. Great topics and great narration. I just found you and can't wait to binge the backlog." Great to have you, Sandra. Thank you so much for the 5-star review. And then this one is from Subvet Steve. Walk and Talk. The title is Walk and Talk with History. I have been following your videos on YouTube for a while now. I just started watching your podcast. I find them very interesting and informative. I find your take unique as a Navy submarine vet. So thank you so much, Subvet Steve, for that. That was super fun to kind of get those reviews directly from our listeners. So we really appreciate it. Also, we're getting enough lifetime members now. Remember, you can go check that out at thehistoryroadtrip.com. We're getting enough lifetime members now that my outro is getting too long to read everybody's name. I think we've got, over 20 now, if you're counting some of our legacy folks.
Thank you.
So we've got a bunch of new folks on board that are lifetime members, largely because we launched our History Road Trip app. So if you want to get a lifetime membership, that includes lifetime access to our History Road Trip app. And you can check that out over at historyordrive.com. So our outro is getting so long with all these lifetime members that we have. So I'm not going to read everybody's name at the very end now because it would take forever. But I am going to shout out any new lifetime members in each of our podcast episodes. For other folks, if you're interested in a lifetime membership, again, you get lifetime access to our new app that we just launched. We've got a couple videos out. I'll make sure I put video links in the description to those. We got on a live stream with JD from History Underground, History or Drive, historyordrive.com. If you're interested in that, the price will go up for that lifetime membership because this app was a pretty hefty undertaking. And so that lifetime membership price will probably go up sometime in the next couple months. I was going to do it in June, but because it's America 250, maybe I'll wait till after 4th of July. But if you're interested, It's $99 right now. We are going to increase that price because that helps the channel, and that's going to get you lifetime access.
Yeah. And it's just a one-time cost.
Yeah, one-time cost.
So just $99 for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Period. You never pay again, which is great because there's no reoccurring monthly cost. And we just didn't want to do like a Patreon kind of thing. We just wanted it to be one time, easy
for our lifetime members.
And you're in. So
if that's not for you and you want to pay 30 cents a month to check out the History Road Trip app, that's the price right now. That is a crazy deal. But we want to give this to you guys. We want to help you get out there and travel because that's our mission. That's our goal.
Yep.
So, Jen, World War II history.
Yes.
People love World War II history.
Well, it was a huge war and it saved the world. But
it was.
When we talk about the two areas of history we're going to talk about, the Doolittle raid and the Sullivan brothers, both of these events are precipitated because of Pearl Harbor.
Right.
So when you think of December 7th, 1941, the day that lives in infamy, it was when America came under attack from the Empire of Japan. And so many men were killed and in such a fast amount of time and entombed in ships. Think of the Arizona, right? It was just a huge shock to America, the U.S. Navy. So Doolittle raid is going to be in response to that. And the Sullivan brothers, when we talk about them, they have a sister who has a boyfriend named Bill Ball, who is on the Arizona. And so they all join up because of their sister's boyfriend, and Doolittle raid is a response to Pearl Harbor. So let's talk about the Doolittle raid.
Yeah, and I want to remember our younger listeners and watchers, because we do get some folks commenting. We had not been pulled into the war yet, right? We hadn't really been pulled in, right? We were kind of doing this, we were staying out of it type thing, and then when we got struck at Pearl Harbor, gloves were off and we were all in.
Yes, we were helping the British. So if you know, Americans were going over and fighting with the British. They were becoming, I wouldn't say British subjects, but they were flying for England, and we were helping with supplies and things like that to England, but we were not entering the war. We were really trying to take a stance of neutrality. And because at the time we didn't know exactly how bad the Socialist Party of Germany, the Nazis, had gotten. We didn't know what they were doing there at the time. And really all of that doesn't really come out until the end of the war.
Yeah. So I just want to remind our younger listeners, our younger viewers of that is why these two that we're about to talk about, General Doolittle and the Sullivan brothers, that is why Pearl Harbor really was kind of the spark that lit the fire that, got kind of Doolittle his fame, and then what brought the Sullivan brothers into the war.
But know that the war has been raging in Europe for years now.
Yep.
And Poland's been taken over, France has been taken over. So it's been raging for years, but America has tried to stay out of it. Now, you also have to bear in mind, we talk about this, the technology of the wars. Germany was at the peak of it right now. Germany and Japan are at the top of their game right now. America is not. When it comes to world powers, we're like 7th at the time. We're not making warships. We're not making planes. We're not doing any of that. And we're just kind of maintaining. And so Germany, tip of the spear, they are turning out diesel subs. So they're at the pinnacle of their technology. And so is Japan with their zero.
And that's why what Doolittle did was pretty incredible.
So December 7th happens. America is decimated, and they are fearful that the Japanese are going to go further east. They're worried that the Japanese now are Hawaii was just a stopping point.
Yeah, just kind of a stopping point. Because if people don't know, it's only like a week-long ship ride, right? It's only about 7 days from Hawaii to the coast of California.
Yes.
But folks need to remember, right? And from our Navy days, we know it's only a 1 week kind of boat ride, right, on the ship from Hawaii to the coast of California. That is, in Navy terms, that is spitting distance.
Nothing. And so when you think about that, these planes were launched from aircraft carriers, Japanese aircraft carriers, to Hawaii. The fear was, oh my gosh, they're going to attack the western part of the continental United States. So that's what Doolittle is in response to. Doolittle is trying to take the war to the Pacific. And if you know anything about history, he's successful at that. But that's what he's trying to do. And that's what the success of it is trying to do. But how do you do this? We are not the Navy that we are today. We are not this aviation Navy at the time. I would say because of Pearl Harbor, we become a big aviation Navy, because what is out to sea during the attack on Pearl Harbor is the aircraft carriers. That's why you don't hear of aircraft carriers being sunk at Pearl Harbor. Yeah. And it's all battleships, because the Navy at the time was a battleship Navy. That's what we thought of the Navy. Big guns, big battleships, get up close and just fire. It wasn't so much getting planes on the ships and getting them close. That is all necessity after Pearl Harbor. So that's where this idea of bombers on an aircraft carrier comes from. We hadn't really been experimenting with that yet. We hadn't been trying that yet. So Doolittle, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle, he's going to plan this attack. He's going to lead this attack. He's going to take the B-25 bomber. It is a lighter aircraft even then. He makes it even lighter by taking off all of its guns and extra fuel tanks and trying to get as close as they can to Japan to fire on Tokyo. But unfortunately, Pearl Harbor happens December 7th. Not only are they trying to reconstruct, but they're trying, what's the response? So Doolittle says, let's try this response. Let's get these medium weight bombers. Let's launch them off a carrier and let's bomb them. And whatever damage we can do, whether or not, it'll scare them enough to know that we can respond to this kind of attack. And so they practice. They draw the lines on runways. They're taking all the weight off, and they're seeing if they can get these planes off the ground from the marks on the ground the size of an aircraft carrier.
I didn't know they did that. That's cool.
They kept trying. And so much so, like, this happens in April of 1942.
The Doolittle raid.
The Doolittle raid. So this is how quick they mount this response, and they practice this. They get their best pilots. They fly 16 of these aircraft off, 5 crew in a B-25. And again, they're taking off any weight that they can. All the guns that they have, they take them off and put broomsticks in there to look like they have guns. Their whole idea is we're going to be fast enough to hit them. We won't need defense. We'll be on the offense the whole time, and then we'll get out of there. And like Scott said, the plan was to make it back, but when they're spotted early on
by the Japanese,
they have to quickly decide, we have just enough fuel to make it there. Who still wants to do this? You'll have to end up ditching. You could try to fly to China, who will be friendly at the time, and maybe make it home. But it's up to you. In the end, they really go, it's up to you what you do. These are what you can do, but you have basically enough fuel to make it to Tokyo. Who wants out? And nobody wants out.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do this. Doolittle will fly in the very first plane off the carrier. So the number 1 B-25 off is Doolittle. He flies it. And then 16 others will go after. And they are successful. They do bring an attack to Tokyo. Now, some will go to China. One will go to Russia. One will actually ditch into the ocean. But because they are successful, because they launch this counterattack, the Japanese pull back their offensive. And that's what makes this so successful, is now the war is taken to the Pacific. And as you know, the two fronts will be, Germany and the Pacific. But it's because of this Doolittle raid that the front gets pulled back to the Pacific. And it's because of the success of this. And so we were in Arlington, and we came upon James Doolittle's grave. And what's so interesting is I was there April 18th.
Yeah.
And I did not even realize.
Like the day of the raid.
The day of the raid. I did not even realize I was there that day, came upon his grave and wanted to tell his story. So the raid's named for him because he's the one who thinks of it all. He gets the Medal of Honor for this raid.
Yeah. And one interesting anecdote that I found when I was making the video was, I guess the targets that they hit when they finally flew over Japan and dropped the bombs weren't the exact targets that they had planned on. And so Doolittle actually thought he was going to get fired by the time he got back because he didn't hit the intended targets. But the success of the bombing run was so great publicly, and what it caused Japan to do, like you said, to kind of pull back. So they knew now all of a sudden they had to defend their home front. that he didn't get fired. He got promoted. I think he skipped colonel and went straight to brigadier general or something like that, 1 star. And then he got awarded the Medal of Honor. So it's kind of funny that you carry out this daring mission that's, lives in history now, thinks he's going to get fired, and then he gets promoted.
Well, it's so funny because they're launching this experiment anyway, right? And Doolittle he's all in. Like, we're gonna launch these bombers off an aircraft carrier. We're gonna make it work. Then they get spotted.
Yeah.
Right. The Hornet gets spotted, and so they got to launch early. He's gonna launch these bombers off a carrier, but he's gonna do it further out than they thought they were gonna be. They don't quite make it to their point, their destinations. He doesn't stop him from bombing. He's still gonna bomb Japan and give them an awakening, a response, and then he's going to try to survive. So he actually does survive. Doolittle is one of the people who make it to China, and the Chinese actually hide him and help him. And the Chinese will pay for this. They have a lot of people who will come under attack from the Japanese because of their help to the Americans. And he actually makes it back relatively early and is able to fight in the rest of the war.
And it was neat for you able to see his gravesite at Arlington, because we've been to Arlington. If you guys have been following us for a while, we've been to Arlington a whole bunch of times. So if you guys are curious, search the Talk with History website. But it was cool for you to be able to go and visit his gravesite while you there with John Kiriakou, who we'll talk about our videos that we did with him, in future episodes here coming up soon. Now, I had only learned about the Sullivan brothers because you had bought this World War II poster. And there's a flea market close by, and Jenn loves her history stuff, like as anybody will know. And there was it came out after all of this stuff happened with the brothers, but it became like a rallying cry, right? They did their part, I think is what the poster says. And so tell us a little bit about the Sullivan brothers. And there's actually a movie that came out a couple years after this happened as well.
Like a year. Yeah. It's so funny. They capitalized quickly on the brothers in their story, right? So the brothers are responding to Pearl Harbor, and then they're lost in 1942. The poster comes out in 1943. The movie comes out in 1944, right? So the 5 brothers from Waterloo, Iowa, and all with the last name Sullivan. So that's why when you hear the Sullivan brothers, George is 27, Frank is 26, Joe is 24, Matt is 23, and Al is 20. So 5 brothers. Now, in between these brothers is a sister, Genevieve. She's born in 1917. She has a boyfriend named Bill Ball who dies on the Arizona, and that prompts all of her brothers to avenge him.
Okay, so her boyfriend died in the Pearl Harbor attack.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they all want to join up. Now, 2 of the brothers, the 2 oldest ones, George and Frank, had already been in the Navy. They were discharged in 1941, early in 1941, before war. And so it was easier for them to just re-up, basically. But they brought their 3 younger brothers with them. Only one of the brothers was married. Al was married and had a wife and a child named Jimmy. And so when you hear of grandchildren of the Sullivan brothers, it's Al's descendants, because none of the other brothers were married. 2 of them were engaged, but no one had married or had children. And so they all join up, and their whole premise was they wanted to serve together. Yeah. And at first the Navy was very reluctant for that, because they had a stipulation where they didn't want siblings to serve together. It wasn't strictly enforced. It was just kind of like, we prefer they don't. But it came when they went onto the Juno. There were other sets of brothers on the Juno.
Yeah, so they got their way.
They got their way, and there were sets of brothers on the Arizona too. So it wasn't like this was a strictly enforced policy. So it was easier for them to go, okay, you can all serve together on the Juno. So they enlist on January 3rd, 1942. So again, right after Pearl Harbor, right after Christmas. And they are all sent to the Juno. It participates in the Guadalcanal campaign, begins in August of 1942. We're early in the morning of November 13th, during the Battle of Guadalcanal. The Juno will exchange fire with Japanese destroyers. It's hit by a destroyer, and then it's actually sunk by a torpedo. And what happens is all 5 of the brothers will perish. Now, they don't all perish that same day. So the survivors report that Frank, Joe, and Matt are all killed instantly. Al, the one with the son and the wife, he drowns the next day. And George, the oldest, survives for 4 or 5 days, but he starts to suffer from delirium and hypothermia, and he is just grieving his 4 brothers. He climbs off the side of the lifeboat of the raft. He waves goodbye, and he's never seen or heard from again.
Oh, wow.
So all 5 of them went down with the Juno. And so that's why the poster, the 5 Sullivan brothers missing in action in the Solomons is what it would say. And it has the 5 stars. And if you know anything about the stars on a flag, they would be blue on a flag with a white background and a red stripe around it. If you're lost during war, those stars turn to gold. And that's when you hear Gold Star Widow, or the Sullivan brothers' mother became a Gold Star mother. And so the poster comes out after that. The Sullivan brothers' parents go on war bond drives and things like that. When they actually christen the first Sullivan ship, it will be their mother who christens it with the champagne bottle. Yeah. Their sister, in response to this, will join the Waves, and she will serve out the rest of the time in the military as the Wave. She will survive. So they have their one daughter, and of course they have their grandson and Jimmy, and then Jimmy will go on to have other children. But this turns into an act, and you've seen Saving Private Ryan, and you've seen what kind of happens when you hear a lot of siblings from one family have paid the ultimate price for freedom. They try to make sure a mother doesn't lose all their children. And it's called the sole survivor policy now in the Navy. And it's actually, every service has a variation of it. Yep. And it has been enacted. It has been enacted a couple times. I was looking at the Nyland brothers is kind of who Saving Private Ryan is based off of. And if you've seen our video to Normandy, we see 2 of the Nyland brothers. Same thing happened in Afghanistan. A Navy SEAL, there were 3 brothers. A Navy SEAL was killed. And then a Special Armed Forces combat medic was killed in Afghanistan. And they found their brother, who was a Marine, and sent him home. So this happens today. They never want a mother or a family to have lost all of their children in conflict. And so it's a regulation, the sole survivor policy. If you know you're serving with your family members, if something like that were to happen, you're immediately discharged from the military and sent back. Now,
one thing I would encourage folks to check out our video. One, the video on location, because they have a headstone for each of the brothers, right? So there's 5 headstones in Arlington, even though they were never found. But you said they were in the same section as other folks who their bodies were never found, like
Glenn Miller,
right? In that similar section. But also the movie, which came out in 1944, a lot of people would recognize some of the actors in the movie. And so it was actually kind of neat as I pulled up the movie. You can find it on YouTube, and I think it's free.
Yeah, the Fighting Sullivans.
The Fighting Sullivans. So if you go onto YouTube and you look up the Fighting Sullivans, they spend the majority of the movie focusing on their lives, right? Kind of as kids, and then as they're growing up, and then as they go off to the war. But you'll recognize the Sullivan's father. He was in the Sullivan's father was
Gone with the Wind.
Well, the Sullivan's father was wasn't he the uncle from It's a Wonderful Life?
Yeah, he's also in Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind. But Ward Bond plays a Navy officer.
Also in It's a Wonderful Life.
Also in It's a Wonderful Life. So you'll recognize some of the actors in the movie, The Fighting Sullivan. So it's kind of fun to go see. That's black and white.
Yes. And it's, again, these movies came out the poster comes out relatively quickly. The movie comes out relatively quickly because this is all a part of the warfighting effort. These people didn't die in vain, right? They're answering the call of freedom. They're answering the call of what happened to Pearl Harbor. It was nominated for a now discontinued Academy Award for Best Story.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I guess they used to give out for Best Story.
Yeah.
And because it's the story of the Sullivan brothers. But it's really great to see the 5 brothers, and it kind of gives them a good depiction of their lives. And like I said, I have the poster, and I think of the Sullivan brothers. The shipwreck was found in 2007. But again, all the brothers went down with the ship. They treat it as a graveyard, so they don't go down there and excavate anything from it. But they have found that shipwreck.
Yeah, and if you're in Arlington, right, and you're kind of doing you're using the Arlington National Cemetery app, which is a great app. If you want to look up graves, you can look these up relatively easily.
Yeah, and they have that whole memorial section. The gravestones are closer together because, as you can imagine, you don't really bury anybody there. But they're just in memory, so you can visit someone like Glenn Miller, who was also lost at sea, and the Sullivan brothers. It's just a place you can go and leave something and remember them and tell their story.
As we walk back down the hill from the markers of the Doolittle and the Sullivan families, the silence of Arlington feels heavier, but also more profound. We've stood at the grave of a man who looked at an impossible mission and said, "We can do this." And we've honored the 5 brothers who looked at a world in crisis and said, "We must go together." The Doolittle raid proved that courage could change the course of a war, but the story of the Sullivans reminds us of the devastating cost that often comes with that courage. From the skies over Tokyo to the depths of the Pacific, these men represent the absolute best of what it means to serve. Their stories aren't just etched in stone there in Arlington, they are woven into the very fabric of our national identity. Whether you are visiting the Doolittle grave to find inspiration for your own impossible tasks, or paying respects to the Sullivans to remember the weight of family and sacrifice, these are stops that stay with you long after you leave the cemetery gates. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
This has been a Walk with History production. Talk with History is created and hosted by me, Scott Benny. Episode researched by Jennifer Benny. Check out the show notes for links and references mentioned in this episode. Talk with History is supported by our community at thehistoryroadtrip.com. Our eternal thanks go out to our lifetime members to help keep us going. Make sure you hit that follow button in that podcast player, and we'll talk to you next time.